3, 2, 1, and go. You are live.
Hi, folks. Welcome to our Friday night live. Frick's busy tomorrow night, so we had to bump this one up. Tonight's topic is workbenches. Answer your questions best I can. Some have already come in. Did we get a bunch?
We got a few, yeah.
Right. So I will do the introductions as we get a little bit deeper into it. So you go ahead and throw one at me right now if you want.
Sure. This one comes from Jeff in Woodbury, Connecticut.
Hi, Jeff.
He says, I know bench height varies by the person, but when building a new bench, should I go with the height that works okay for both planing and dovetailing, or go with the best height for planing and go with the Mox and Vice style for dovetailing?
Well, Jeff, the first question I'd ask you is, how old are you? And if you have any underlying conditions like a bad back or bad legs. If you're in your 40s and you're physically fit, what would I do? I would probably go with a higher bench. So mine is 36 3/8 of an inch. I'm 5'7" and 5'8" with these shoes on, I think. So this is relatively high, but it's really nice because it's a really good sawing height. And I would probably choose sawing over hand planing when it comes to how I design my bench. So when I'm sawing at this height, my arm and the saw are pretty much level, which is ideal. So you got a couple of options. You can always, actually we are about to start selling these. In fact, I think they'll be released next week. You can build a bench that's lower, which makes it easier for hand planing because you're over top of it. And then you can use a Mox and Vice, which simply clamps onto your bench like that and elevates, what is that, 4 inches? Brings your work up an additional 4 inches. So I could have dropped this bench down 4 inches and used this, and probably would have made it a little bit easier to hand plane, but I get used to it, so it's not a big deal. So those are your options. As far as where, I've heard what other people have said about where it should hit your hand, but I don't know if I believe that. I think it's too. There's too many factors involved to really come out and say what height is right for anybody. What's really nice is if you get a chance to work on somebody else's bench or another bench, and you get to play around with the height, you can adjust it. So the bench that we designed, you can add blocks underneath and raise it up. When I originally built this, I had feet that were hinged so that you could raise it up 4 or 5 inches just by flipping the feet underneath. But I never did. I never used it, so I took it off. So read me the question again so I can make sure I answered that. Oh, build the bench for dovetails or hand planing. So let me throw one more caveat in here. So if you're a strong upper body build, it's going to be easier to plane at a higher level. If you're a slight build, you're going to want your bench at a lower level for planing. And I would think that would be the deciding factor, your physique. Go with that. Next, Frick.
Okay.
We got Chris here tonight. We got Moose here tonight. We got Ken here tonight. Jake's behind the camera eating, and Frick is over there. I assume Luther's on?
No.
No?
No.
Awful quiet.
I'm not sure.
And somebody who's going to do the head count for the vets? You, Ken? So if you are a wounded vet that has been to our program as one of our scholarship vets, any one of our 26 classes, and you're on there tonight, we'd love to acknowledge you, give you a shout out. So Ken will, if you just put
At Ken,
and tell us your name and what year or what class you were in, in the comment section, then Ken will watch for it and collect them, and we'll stop and give you a shout out. Next question, Frick, please.
Next one comes from Todd in Leaskdale, Ontario.
Hi, Todd.
He says, my bench top finally needs resurfacing, and I've seen several how-to videos online for doing it with a router sled and 2 straight edges clamped to each side for the sled to move along. This seems much easier and more accurate than trying to hand plane the entire surface. Do you have any experience with this?
I've always just done mine with a hand plane. So a hand plane and winding sticks. You could do it. I mean, I've seen exactly what you're talking about. And maybe I'll even try that for the next one. This bench needs to be done. If I put a straight edge across this section, oh, it's not that bad. I thought it was worse. I thought one direction. Yeah, it may be just scuffed up. I thought we had an area in this bench, Jake, that was really, that's not it.
I don't remember the specific area.
I thought there was. Let me just check and see what we can get in there. What's this shim right here? You know? It's not, oh yeah, it is 6 thou. Oh, so that's better than 6 thou. In fact, it probably feels like it's at least 10. So it needs to be done. But you know what? I mean, I don't ever sand it. So even if I did use a router sled on it, I'd still have to come in and hand plane it. And if it's not that bad, I would just hand plane the whole thing. So I don't know. Depends on where your skill is. If you've done enough hand planing that you can handle it, it's a big job. And you're going to want a long plane. I'm going to use a number 8 when I do it. It's tiring because you're having to reach, but it's doable. I've surfaced. I don't remember how many benches. A lot of them. So you're good at hand planing. Just do the hand plane. If you want to try the sled, I haven't done it before, but I think it looks, as long as you're not taking too much, very, very light passes, you shouldn't have to worry about tear out. But I was thinking more of causing whatever you're using to hold the router to flex if you're taking too heavy of a cut. Try it. Next, Frick. Hi, Mike.
He says, I'm seeing a trend of woodworkers putting laminate like formica on workbenches and assembly tables. What are your thoughts on this, and do you think a traditional top is better choice?
Well, I wouldn't put formica, which is plastic laminate, because it's just way too slippery. And there's no time that I want my bench to be slippery. You could do it on an assembly bench just to keep the glue off it, but I don't even think they still made that stuff. That was back in my father's day. I say a wood top is traditional and it's good and I like it, but if you've seen this bench that we do, and this one was made out of water-resistant MDF, and I would say that the number one criteria, there's several, the number one criteria for your bench is that it needs to be flat, because it's your reference. Everything you're building is resting on this. So the flatter this is, the better chance that what you're building is going to come out right. You want it to be stable. You don't want it to flex on you. You pound it. You want it to be nice and solid, so it needs to be heavy. And this stuff works ideally. In fact, when we end up building this, I said if I'd have done that one first, I might never have built the other one. Hello? I guess he wanted in. What was the question?
Formica.
Oh, the Formica. Yeah. The downside to a wood bench top is that you're going to have to resurface it. The upside to this is you don't have to resurface it. It's going to stay the same. Now, we also do this. We make one with Baltic birch, so 3 sheets of 1-inch Baltic birch. And same thing, it'll be nice and stable. But this is ideal. Next, Frick. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about this bench once we go through some questions. Whoa, close to home.
Sorry, my
That's
mic
where
was
Gina's
on.
from.
Yeah, this is from Anthony. Sorry, my mic was on mute. Anthony from Bridgewater says, have you built an adjustable height workbench working on a scissor lift
you shut that
mechanism
off?
between the legs and top, but not sure if it's worth the work? Your thoughts?
I'm sorry, I was watching this table saw. Say that again, please, Frick.
Have you ever built an adjustable height workbench working on a scissor lift mechanism between the legs and top, but not sure if it's worth the work? Your thoughts?
I've never built one, but I worked on one. I was doing a wood show over in England one time, and they had one there, but it leaked. It was hydraulic lift. So we would raise it up, and then an hour or two later, it would have sunk down. We'd have to raise it up again. Yeah, an awful lot of work. Well, I told you that when I first built this bench, there were 2 additional feet, and they were hinged on the outside. So if you wanted to raise the bench up 4 inches, you just had to lift one end up, and because it was a piano hinge, it would just fall underneath, and then you go to the other side and lift it up, and it would fall underneath. Did we ever do it? Did we ever?
Yeah, when you built it.
Yeah. I know for 10 years afterwards, I wouldn't have used it 3 times. So you get used to the height, and yeah. Now, I might look at that a little bit differently if I was 75, 70. But for right now, can't recall ever coming in and saying, oh shoot, I wish this was 2 inches lower or 3 inches taller. But yeah, it's not as noticeable.
You wake up one morning.
But if you got a back issues or leg issues or age issues, everybody gets those sooner or later, as Moose said. You may want to consider it, but you know what? It's a lot of expense and a lot of frigging around, I would think, for something that you're probably not going to use a whole lot. To each his own on that one. Next, Frick.
This one comes from Chris in Savannah, Georgia.
Hey, Chris. I keep looking at this stand and the camera's over here.
I am getting ready to build a workbench and have some 8/4 white oak that is 7 inches wide. I am thinking
That's called 8/4.
Okay, well, 8/4 didn't make sense to me, but anyway. I am thinking about just planing it flat and gluing 3 7-inch pieces together for the top, but never see anyone use wide boards like this. Is there a reason for this? Should I rip it into smaller pieces and glue it up so the top is edge grain?
So my very first bench, that is now Jake's desk, was made up of a wide plank that was 2 1/4 inches thick. And it was notorious for going out of flat. And I had to resurface that multiple times over the course of, I built it in 1989, and I didn't replace it until 2012. So, yeah, it was notorious. It wouldn't stay flat. This one, I took 10/4 lumber, and I cut it into 3-inch pieces, and I glue it edge to edge, face to face to face. So I am working on, as you would say, edge grain. So I've had this now for 10 years compared to the other one, and I haven't had to resurface. It needs to be resurfaced, but I've gotten 10 years out of it. So I would probably say yes. Rip it into pieces and glue it face to face. That would make more sense. I think I think you'd have a more stable product. But I'd also make sure that your moisture content's right. So make sure that that material is in equilibrium with where you're going to have it, meaning in your shop. So, and I'll just throw another little thing too. When you start ripping that big thick stuff like that up, don't expect it to stay. It'll twist, and if you need 10 pieces to build the core of your bench, you better make sure you process 14. and then let them sit for a while, and a while means a couple of months, and then get rid of the ones that really twisted bad because they're not done twisting. Good question, by the way. Next, Frick. They get you between bites?
Yep. Fred Robbins in Yamhill, Oregon.
Hey, Fred, we're Yamhill? I know where Yamhill is.
Yep. What is the manufacturer of the water-resistant MDF, and where is it available?
Okay, Ken? Name a few. You don't have that one on you. Give him the microphone so he can say, I don't know, I'll have to check. Well, wait,
will check.
there's more than one, right? I'm pretty sure that everybody that makes MDF makes that variety as well. And I'm going to just check with these guys. Did I not read somewhere that it was 3 times stronger than regular MDF? Somebody told me that. I don't think it was a little bird. I remember whoever I talked to about it, that it was substantially stronger than regular MDF. I know it was Mel. The color's not always different. We've had 2 different brands.
Had that color and a light color.
Right. So I actually like this because you can't tell the other one from regular MDF. So there's at least 2 different brands out there, and I think, as I mentioned, everybody that makes MDF makes the water resistant. And now that we've used it for, what, a year? Is there any difference between that and regular MDF?
You mean milling it up? And
Yeah, just using it as a product.
No.
You would not be able to tell if... No. Okay. So I don't know why they don't switch all MDF to this stuff. Because there's no downside. Is there any downside, Jake?
More expensive.
Much?
Yeah.
I thought it was back down to the normal price. Or
Well, the regular stuff is pre-COVID price.
so the water resistant, you need to talk into your mic. I mean, you and I are having this conversation. The water resistant is still more expensive than the regular?
Yeah.
By, give me a guess?
20%.
20%. Well, I would pay the 20% to not have what happened. So all of our stuff in here is MDF. So the baseboard over there, that leaked, and the water ran down the wall onto the baseboard, which is completely ruined now because it was regular MDF. Had that been this stuff, it would have dried out, and you'd never known there was anything wrong. Jake and I did a video.
It does still swell.
Yeah, Jake and I did a video. So it would. How long ago did we do the video? 2 months? 3 months? Maybe 4 months. We took 2 different brands of water-resistant MDF and regular MDF. We soaked it in water for a day or 2, and then let it dry out for a long time, maybe 3 weeks. And one brand went right back to normal. The other brand was
90% back to normal.
90%, and the regular MDF was just full of, it was just destroyed. You wouldn't be able to use it. So we'll try to find you. We will try to find you the brand. Can you do that while we're here, Ken?
Find the brand?
Can you find the brand? The brands that we know? Okay, we'll give that to you. And it's available in what sizes have we bought it in?
Only 4x sheet, well, they're,
No, thickness.
inch and 1 inch and 3/4 inch.
Do you know if it's available in 1/2 inch or?
Yeah, I believe it is, yeah.
So I'm pretty sure you can get it in the range that you can get it in regular MDF. Next, Rick.
Next one comes from Tim Beach,
Hey, Tim.
who is retired U.S. Air Force. He's
Thank
from
you, sir.
Cedar Park, Texas. He says, I recently purchased your Baltic birch bench, and I love it.
Yay!
I'm new to using hand tools over power tools.
Hold on a second. Do you remember sending the bench to him?
Yeah, we had to modify it.
Oh, he's the guy that did the
The wrap.
wrap with walnut or something?
Yeah.
He says, my question is,
Send a picture.
which would be better vise for a face vise? The Moxon vise or a Schoberg's vise?
Which would be better for the Moxon vise really can only be used for the one thing, which is dovetailing or joinery, because it's sitting up here. Whereas the Schoberg vise, if you put a Schoberg vise over there, it's a much more functional vise. The Moxon vise has the advantage of being able to clamped to some place. When are we gonna have those ready for sale, Ken?
You're ready now.
Are they? Like possibly next week they'll go up? So you're gonna be able to buy from us, if you don't wanna make your own, one like this, it's all ready to go. You just clamp it on. So you put a clamp on either side to hold it in place. Now the big advantage of this is that you can open this up, put your board down in here, and now you've got clamping pressure over the entire width of the board. And it's only limited by the space in between your rods. If you come over and use the Schoberg, and you could modify this if you wanted, if you had a bigger bench, but the nice thing about it is the Schoberg tends not to rack, but if you tighten it too much, you will force it to. You can always, if you had to, is put a spacer in here that's the same width. But that's well held, and that board is 8 inches wide. 8 inches wide, and I'm grabbing 5 3/4 inches. So I wouldn't consider that to be an issue. So what would I do if I'd have both. When we originally designed this, we had a face vise on here, but the face vise added the cost of an extra vise, which was substantial. And we realized, well, if you're only using this for dovetailing, you can dovetail down here and use it for a tail vise. But it would be nice to have the second vise there. So I would go with an extra Moxon, and I would go with the extra Schoberg up here, but you also have to cut into your stretchers in order to allow for that to go up in, because it goes all the way back to out here. But I wouldn't hesitate to get a Moxon vise too, just for the occasion when you need it. So. But you're going to get more use out of the Schoberg mounted on the face. Next, Rick.
John Root in Greenbrier, Arkansas.
John in Arkansas?
Yeah.
Hi, John.
He says a wheelchair is in my near future, probably within a year. What changes would you make to your design to accommodate this? I definitely won't be able to have an end vise. I recall seeing the bench brigade built and delivered. I have not been able to get my hands on the design.
Well, we can certainly help you with that, because I know he would, the fellow, the retired architect that designed it, would be more than willing to share it with you. I'm going to suggest that that's going to be something that you're going to have to, you are going to have to wait until you're in your chair to realize, figure out what you're able to do. I can throw some ideas at you. I would probably have it so it was a U-shaped, meaning I could move my chair into here and I could actually brace myself against, if you can imagine cutting into the bench like that, so you could get in here and you could have your back against this part of the bench when you're planing to give yourself some support. But really, you're going to have to determine what your limitations are. But if you contact who?
I don't know who built it.
Huh? No. Which one of us is going to contact you and get them the plans? The bench that they built for.
Well, you'd have to contact Jack.
Oh, that's a good. You get a hold of Jack
Lane.
at. How can you reach Jack?
If he gets on the PHP website,
Microphone.
Jack's, he can contact him through the PHP website, or he's in the chat here tonight if he wants to contact him in there.
Okay, Jack, if you're in there and you can help out, would you communicate with this fellow and see if you can get, what's the name of the fellow that built that bench? I hate forgetting those names because he built several benches. He built the bench for Josh Brion, and he built the bench for Austin Reese, who was the wounded EOD up in Montana. So I'm going to leave it to you guys to connect on the chat. I'm sure Jack will do it if he's on there. Next, Rick.
Next one's from Michael Evans in Powell, Tennessee.
Hi, Michael.
Would a Moxon style vise be an acceptable alternative to a tail vise?
No. Your tail vise is designed to hold your piece that you're planing. So if I'm planing this piece of walnut, I've got a bench dog in here and I've got a bench dog in here. And that has to be sitting below or at or below this surface to squeeze this in place and hold it. Your Moxon vise is sitting up on top, so. Function of a tail vise, that's the primary function of a tail vise, and that would not, a Moxon vise wouldn't help you that way. Next, Frick.
Todd Laginus in the chat.
Hey, Todd.
Can you mount the Moxon vise hardware into the side of the bench, basically turning it into a face vise?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Certainly you could. Just like we did right here. Frick, Jake, can you show them this?
Yeah.
We put this on here just because, do you remember the name of the guy whose idea this was? I hate not giving credit. So somebody, I apologize for forgetting his name, had this idea. He needed a bench, he needed a vise, he didn't have a bench. His table saw was the heaviest piece of equipment that he had, so he built it on the end. And this is just really cool. Just a great idea. We've never used it, but we leave it on here anyway, just as a conversation piece. But yes, you could do that. You could do that right into the side of your bench. If I did that, I would probably make it so that, actually, you know what? You could do that. You wouldn't even have to have the inside jaw. You would just use that, so you'd have to bore into here. So I would bore into this if you're using MDF, and then bore a hole up from the bottom, not all the way through, obviously, so you could capture a nut on the inside, so you could lock that in place. You'd do it the same way as we did this. If you just imagine, that this is the edge of your bench instead of it being a piece of maple, so you've got a hole. In case you don't know, Ken, I don't need to get it. In case you don't know, we sell a Moxon kit that we've modified. Willie the Wonder Man takes them and adds this knob on there, which is what a convenience when it comes to using it. Jake's idea was to add these springs, and we have these brass bushings, oil impregnated brass bushings. The springs are really nice because it doesn't require a third hand to pull this back. Oh, David Barron's idea? Okay, you had the brass bushing.
Actually, that was Luther.
That was Luther. Did you do anything?
Yeah,
Luther forgot the live was tonight instead of tomorrow night, so he's 2 hours away from home.
That says a whole lot. So you would bore a hole this diameter right into the side of your MDF bench. Down in here, probably 3 inches in, you would bore another hole, a larger diameter hole, up into so that you could access the back end of this to put a nut on, just like we have in here. Can you see up in there? Mm-hmm. So in order to get at this, you'd have to have another hole coming up through, but that's doable. And then you have another nut on the outside here. Now what we did we have a larger diameter hole that will capture that nut, so it allows you to bring your jaws up tight. So yes, you could do that. It's a good idea. Probably an option we could even just start offering. What? Yeah, that's right too. Although it doesn't pull the same way, it's not on a track. So I think Chris was making reference to that question we had a few minutes ago about could you use a Moxon vise for your tail vise? So this doesn't really stay put, like, and it doesn't move uniformly like a Schoberg vise does. You have to operate both of these when you're trying to hold something else over there. So I still say it's not the ideal tail vise, but that was a really good idea to mount it on here. You gonna do all right there, Jake?
Yeah, I'll get there.
Next, Frick.
Next one comes from Mark in the chat. He's from London.
Mark in London.
Says, hi, Rob, I love your channel. Please, how stable would a laminated oak workbench top be?
How stable would a laminated oak worktop be? Well, I'm assuming that you're meaning they're going to be laminated face to face. So, of course, the first thing you're going to ask is the oak dry? And dry is only an approximate description because it has to be in equilibrium with the environment. And the more you control your environment, the better your luck is going to be. So old homes, England, where homes breathe, a high pressure system comes in and everything dries out. A low pressure system comes in and everything absorbs moisture. And that's where you get those really wild fluctuations. Today, it's pretty easy to control the inside environment so that there's a very small change when the weather changes inside. So as long as your wood has reached equilibrium with the surrounding atmosphere, meaning if I were to take that piece of wood, if I wanted the absolute best way of determining how stable it is, Jake, you took that scale away?
I took one.
I had that scale here. You took it?
The nice one? Yes.
No, it's sitting over there,
Oh.
right? So I would weigh this. And they're not that expensive, are they?
$20?
$20 for that scale?
Maybe.
Oh, that's even better. Oh, as soon as Jake comes over here, I'm going to show you what to do. Take a sample piece of the wood that you're going to use, and in the shop where it's going to be parked, you're going to take a piece of that oak and you're going to weigh it. Thank you. And this scale weighs quite accurately. You put it on there and you record the weight. And tomorrow you record the weight. And you do it every day for a month, as long as it's changing. When it starts to gain a little, lose a little, gain a little, lose a little, then you've reached equilibrium. And at that point, you can bet your bottom dollar that you aren't going to have an issue. And other than that, as far as oak goes, I don't think you're going to have much of a difference among the species of popular domestic woods. So, yeah, go ahead and do it. Next, Rick.
This one comes from Ivan in the chat.
Hi, Ivan.
He says, I love your bench. In fact, looking to build one just like it.
I wish they would tell me which bench they're talking about.
Probably the one behind you, yeah. Except maybe a bit longer. One question I have is, how come you don't have any drawers or cabinets and you just have open space underneath?
Well, is he on right now? Or
Yeah,
this
this is in the chat.
Okay. So let me introduce you to both. I don't over here because I have everything I need right here. So there's lots of doors and drawers. I often will clamp to this, so I didn't want anything in the way. I want to be able to come in there and clamp from up the top of the whatever it is I'm clamping to the underside of the bench. If you don't have the luxury of having the room or the wherewithal to build a nice tool cabinet that someday will get finished, then you can do this. So we just shot a YouTube today that'll go up sometime in the next week on building this door-to-drawer configuration. So this bench looks like this bench over here. See, all open underneath except for a little spot for your bench hook or shooting board. So we decided to fill it. So if you look real closely, there is a carcass made out of 3/4, Jake? 5/8.
5/8.
5/8 Baltic birch. So I'm going to just go with the outside. So here's the frame. It goes across the top, down the side, across the bottom, and up here. Then there's a divider here and here. So it splits it into 3 equal spaced openings. And then we have dividers, horizontal dividers, 1, 2, 3 of them that go all the way front to back. And that's what the drawers run on. The middle section has doors. Now, we wanted it so that we could access it from both sides. So you can come over here and you can do the same thing. You can open up that drawer, you can open up this door. Now, what I did is I put a magnet right there, a really powerful magnet, close to the surface, but definitely not out beyond. And I put another magnet right in the middle, down in there. So when you close your drawer, the magnets, and make sure when you put it in, you don't get opposite, two norths or two souths poles, but it holds it in place. I haven't put the magnet in this one yet. That's why it's still, in fact, I haven't fit the drawer either. So this is a nice addition to the bench if you're looking for space to store stuff. So the reason why I don't have it on this one is because I didn't need it. The reason why I had it on this one is because it looked like a fun thing to do. Will I actually use them? Probably not. I'll find stuff in there a year from now and say, well, that's where that went. Place for everything and everything in its place, and I don't know where it is. So this has 8 drawers and 2 doors. Everything is made out of pine and Douglas fir. The only thing different about doing this is when you typically build a drawer, your back is your template, and you get your template to fit the opening perfectly. You can change it if you have to, if you make a mistake. But when we did this one, we didn't have that luxury because we have essentially 2 drawer fronts and no drawer back. But it was fun to do. In fact, all of that is in our. We built this in the online workshop. Next, Frick. I'm watching the time just because we have a very special guest coming on tonight at 8 o'clock and at the top of the hour, which will be 7 Eastern, and it's a very you'll enjoy it. Very good cause. Next, Frick.
This is from
I like sitting here.
Kyle Rogers.
Hey, Kyle.
He says, hi, Rob. Kyle from Australia. Thanks for your call the other day. How should I attach a hardwood edge band on the Cosman workbench that accounts for movement? I don't have access to torrefied timber.
Well, the top's only 3 inches, and I'll go back to what I said. If you control, what's it cost to go out and buy a dehumidifier or an air conditioning unit, a little portable air conditioning unit? It's not that expensive, but so that it doesn't wreak havoc on what you're building, I would do it. The closer you can control, or the tighter you can control the humidity in your shop, a lot of this stuff becomes a non-issue, at least for widths of only 3 inches. We did that one. Is that out there in the shop? The one that we banded? Do we still have it? Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right too. We use the torrefied, so it doesn't move. I really don't think you'd have a problem. And if you want to be safe, I would glue just the top. I would glue the top inch. Did we put a spline in that? How did we hold that in place? I don't think we did. You could put a spline, maybe a 1/2 inch down from the top all the way around, or just glue the top inch so that any movement, and then dry fit the rest, any movement is going to drop down. It's not going to come up. You don't want it coming up because then it's going to be in your way when you're planing. But as long as it's secured just on the top and allowed to go down if it wants to expand a little bit. But I really don't think you're going to have that much of an issue on a 3-inch wide piece if it's dry. Next, Frick.
Next one comes from Robert Proctor.
Hey, Bob.
He says, guys, I can't get Baltic birch. Can I get a suggestion for a different material to replace it?
Yeah, there's a company in Oregon that makes apple ply, which I don't know how expensive it is, but it's the same thing. It's made out of all the layers of the same species of wood, so it's a higher quality. You just want to stay away from the stuff you buy at the big box store that I swear they use a weed on the inside, and then they give you a veneer of the hardwood on the outside that is so thin they have to color the bottom substrate so it doesn't telegraph through. So the very first one we built, we used, what did we use? What plywood? I think it was just fir plywood, good one side. And it just looks crappy. It's full of voids, and it just, not very nice. So try apple ply if you can't get Baltic birch, and I don't have any other suggestion for you than that. But Baltic birch, we went for a year or two when it was almost impossible to get. But Ken, no problem with supply now? Ken says no problem. So you might have to just look around a little bit. Try going to cabinet shops. They most likely would sell you some. And if somebody's going to have it, they're going to have it. Because if you're going to use plywood building furniture, it's the only thing to use, I think. Next, Rick.
Excuse me. Next one comes from Peter Perry.
Hi, Peter.
He's in the chat. He says, hey, thinking about making a bench with a shoulder vise. I've seen benches with the grain in the same direction. Do you have any thoughts on this kind of construction?
So you're talking about a shoulder vise like I have, I assume. Okay, okay. Now say that again, please.
I lost it. Where'd it go? Thinking about making a bench with a shoulder vise. I've seen benches with the grain in the same direction. Do you have any thoughts on this kind of construction? He says, I meant the shoulder vise is also in the same direction.
Well, if you built your shoulder vise, so my grain from here is all running this way. The arm is running this way. The grain right here is running this way. When you clamp down on this, and people do it, even though they don't need to, you don't need a ton of pressure. You just need enough to hold it so that it doesn't vibrate or move when you're working on it. But you can apply quite a bit of leverage here, and you can force this joint apart. I have a bolt that goes all the way through to about here to help hold that in place. If the grain was running this way, you're going to deal with more expansion. If it's going to split, it would be easier to split.
Well, the big issue.
The big issue is.
That arm. If that arm. Oh no, sorry. Never mind. It would be going the right way.
I think the primary reason they did it is just to control expansion between here and here. I built this bench so that everything from here to here doesn't move. This is all dry fit from here over. There's 3 splines in there. This bolt is sitting in a larger diameter hole, and it allows the entire bench to move this way or to come this way. And if you've never seen this is pretty cool. So I have, the first bench I had, you just had to make a tool tray. The ramps in your tool tray couldn't go all the way to one side to the other because that would impede the expansion. So this gap right here from season to season is different. So what I did, I cut a groove on the end of this piece of mahogany down in here, slipped in a little piece, took some, that's why I don't have any springs in any of my pens, drilled holes and put in some springs out of ballpoint pens so that this is always under tension and it's always maintaining the gap. But sometimes you'll see a little more of it and sometimes you'll see a little bit less, but it always keeps it nice and tight. That's in my... That's in the online workshop in detail. But I think I would stay with the grain running this way for stability purposes. Next, Frick.
Next one comes from Dave McKibben in Minnesota.
Hey, Dave.
If one does not have a vacuum system to glue large sheets of MDF tabletop, are calls the best option, or is there a better option?
Read that for me again, please.
If you don't have a vacuum system to glue large sheets of MDF, are calls the best option, or is there a better option?
Well, in our video, we show you how Luther came up with this idea. And it involved using large diameter washers and screws because you can imagine how many clamps it would take. So we took this all into account when I took this into account when I designed this. So I envisioned somebody that's new to this, trying to build a bench with minimal tools. So how are they going to put this together and how are they going to get this top flat? So the way we build the base, it's pretty easy to assemble the base and have your stretchers flush at the top of the leg on all four corners. Now, you can also check that with winding sticks. This is going to take a minute to explain, but so you take your winding sticks. Thank you, Jesse. And if you can imagine the top's not on, I would set one winding stick on the top end of the base and the other one on the top end of this base. And I would sight down those winding sticks and I would determine whether or not the top edges of the base are parallel. And if you don't know what winding sticks are, you have these little white inlays on this side. So as you sight down the top edge of this and compare it to the top edge of this, if you see more white on one side than the other, then you know there's wind or twist that has to be dealt with. Now, as long as your stretcher, the piece that runs horizontally, is flush where it meets the upright, here and there and there and there, and if you still have wind or twist, well, all you have to do is just wedge whatever side is low and get it sitting right. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your first piece of MDF, which is going to be your top, and you're going to lay it down, face down, on your frame, on your base. And you're going to have the same amount hanging over both ends so that you have most of this covered. And then you're going to spread your glue, and you're going to put the second piece on. And you're going to use these washers with screws every 3 inches. Now, what I neglected to say is we went in and we pre-drilled into the second piece, not the premium piece that's on the bottom that will eventually be the top. But you're going to pre-drill, you glue it all up, and then you come in with your screw gun and a friend and the big wide washer so that it won't sink down into the MDF, and you carefully use those screws to apply your pressure to bring those two together. Once the glue's dry, you take those screws out and you clean the top off, clean that off, and then you do the same thing with your third piece, which is going to ultimately be your bottom. Now you will see the holes, but it's going to be in the underside, so who cares? And then you screw that down, take the screws out when it's dry, and Bob's your uncle or your father. And everything is good. If you don't want to do that, then you have to have quite a few calls and quite a few clamps. Clamps are probably one of the biggest expenses in the shop when you actually, I don't ever want to know how much I have sitting over there because I know it's a fortune. And what you see on that clamp rack is mirrored on the other side. It takes a long time to accumulate. And when you buy clamps, if you buy junk clamps, you will curse them every time you use them. You have to buy good clamps. They'll fail. The bad ones will fail when you least can afford to have them fail. So the clamping system with the screws is the best way of doing that. How did we do it originally?
With big calls.
Calls and clamps.
Yeah, but
Right. Yeah. In order to get pressure in the middle, and you got your calls running here, you have to put a little bit of a radius. Actually, the easiest way was just put a little strip of wood down the middle, so that, and when you clamp it here and clamp it there, before the call comes tight to this, it's squeezing that little piece of strip of wood in the middle, applying pressure in the middle. That's easier than trying to calculate how much of a radius do you need to have on your call in order for it to apply sufficient pressure in the middle and pull down tight and apply pressure to the outside edges. Complicated answer, but good one. Good question. Next, Frick. Oh, here, stop just 1 second, Frick. Anyone to say hi to? Yeah, let's. Oh, let's have them.
So we got,
this is hard on my memory.
now some of these people don't say if they're vets or not, that if they're in the PHP class, and I don't know some of the names I don't know. So,
Help me, Jake.
Michael Delvoye,
Michael is a vet.
August 22.
Michael.
Kevin Burris, I know he is a vet.
Oh, who's Kevin? Oh, Kevin. The creator of, I got Kevin to make me up a new plaque, and Jake tells me, that's a Seinfeld thing. So we were having a meeting this morning, and Jeff said, remember, second place means you're the first loser. So I got Kevin to put that, he's gonna do that on a plaque for me, on a big slab of slate. It's gonna say, remember, second place means you're the first loser.
He
Sid,
stole that from Jerry Seinfeld.
yeah, Sid Borden's on.
Sid Borden,
Sid.
seems to me I signed a paycheck with his name on it.
You do.
What do you say?
Well, actually, yeah, kind of a paycheck.
Yeah, well, the one up in Fredericton. Sid works
Right.
with Chris.
Eric St. Phillips.
Sid's got 32 years. 32 years. Canadian Army engineers. Next.
Eric St. Phillips, did you hear? April or
Yeah,
August 22. Tim Pierce, September 22.
Hi, Tim.
Ralph Sutton, August 22.
Big Ralph. Howdy, Ralph.
Omar, who was just here in October.
Omar. Oh, we hold on a second. We have to show off Omar. I was just bragging about Omar the other day. So Omar was a miracle. Omar is a Marine EOD. Sorry, Omar. Those are fighting words, aren't they?
No, they're pretty much the same.
Omar was a Marine EOD. It stands for Explosive Ordnance Disposal. So these guys would be the ones that would defuse bombs. And he told me, he said, first they would plant one IED, and then we'd get good at finding them. So then they would plant a second one to try to take out the first responders. And then they would start planting a third one. And they would often hide the power source, because that wouldn't get picked up. Well, the third one got Omar. Took off his leg from the knee down, stripped all the meat off of this leg, so he has a special brace to keep his foot from dropping. This hand, he had the wand, the wand, I guess they call it. And when that blew up, it took all of this, took that finger off and a big chunk of his palm, so he's got some grafts in there to hold that together. Was that the hand that had the fingertips all blown off too? I don't think so.
No. I don't.
And then on this side, the blast took all the meat off of his wrist, off his forearm and his elbow. They made him a new elbow, and they took some muscle from his back. Correct me if I'm wrong, Omar. And they repaired what they could there, but these two fingers were dead. They were there, but they didn't move. So imagine learning to cut dovetails like that. Well, there's his dovetail. I kept going down to help him, and he'd say, no, I want to try. I can do it. And when he assembled that and planed it up, I was wow. So he was nice. He came to me the last day. He goes, Rob, if you'd like, you can have that. So I proudly display that. Omar.
Okay.
Next.
Where's Omar? Corey Miller, October 23.
Corey just got his dog. Just
Brent?
got his service dog. It's I think it's a collie. I might be wrong, but it looked like or a setter. Anyway, he's happy.
Brent Nelson,
Oh,
September 23.
Brent. I can't take too much time, but there's Brent. Slowest dovetailer anywhere. He said the West. No, anywhere. But it was incredible. When he finally got it together and planed it up, I couldn't believe my eyes. Absolutely remarkable. So, Brent, you retain the title of slowest and the best. That's a feather in your cap. Maybe even two.
Danny Bell, he's on.
Danny Bell. Saw a picture the other day of a Chinook dropping troops off on the side of a hill. So they had one end of it was parked, the other end was hovering out over there, and I thought, well, there's Danny Bell. Had to send him that picture. He's probably done that. Danny was 160th Night Stalkers, flew Chinook helicopters. Also used to spin on the ground and do breakdancing. He's got a bald spot that isn't really natural, right up here on the top where he wore the hair. He doesn't grow any hair in that one little spot. I'm telling all your secrets, Dan.
John.
Say hello to the family. Girls.
John Brown, JB.
JB's up in Fredericton. JB was on another one of our Canadian vets. and got his bench built by the Kodiak Woodworkers Club, and I hope there's scratches on it.
Kevin Smira.
Oh, Kev, I haven't talked to Kevin in a long time. Kev, that's Kev's flag right there. And Kevin's a great guy. Took that flag flew in a lot of places, so we chose that one when we built a flag case for it. I'm going to show it to you just in case you haven't seen it. So a lot of people had asked, well, how can you dovetail a flag case? Because you only have one 90-degree corner. These ones are whatever angle they were. So too steep to cut a dovetail in. So what we decided to do, we did dovetail up there. By the way, this is out of ash. So then we'd put a long miter down here, and then I took my dovetail saw and I made slots, cuts through, took some ebony veneer, put it in there, glued it in place, and then flushed it off, so at least it gives you the outline of a dovetail. Attaboy, Kev.
Okay, Mark Smith is on.
Mark, I just read a PHP application from a friend of Mark's.
And
Mark built our, Mark worked here for how long, Jake? Mark's another Canadian.
4 months.
Is Mark retired now? He is. He just retired. Mark just retired.
Al McNeil's on.
Anyway, Mark built a lot of the infrastructure for us. Al McNeil?
Yeah. And
Al
Kyle.
McNeil. Stay in the tank.
Kyle's on.
Kyle
It's,
Pearl?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Al is the owner of this 105 millimeter discardable Sabo anti-armor piercing round. First one he ever fired. And Kyle is our main man in Newfoundland. Kyle comes over and helps with PHP a lot. Now, who's best to introduce this? Are we gonna have them
Did you
introduce
say
it?
JB, Ken?
JB's on,
Yeah.
yeah. Anybody else, Ken?
No, that's it.
No? Okay, so I was contacted a month or so ago by a fellow who is doing a really nice thing for a really nice guy. And the individual we're talking about, I'm going to let them introduce him, but he too is a combat wounded vet, and he's run into a very tough situation. Fellow toolmaker, makes saws. So let's just are you ready? Rick?
Yeah, almost.
Okay.
Where's that microphone, Jake? Am I just taking it?
So I really want you to pay attention to this. There's an opportunity for you to help, but there's also an opportunity for you to win a really nice tool cabinet full of tools that have been donated. We'll hear the whole story. You tell me when you're going to turn over so I can come over there.
Yeah,
see.
come on over.
Okay.
Frick, where do you want this camera then? Where are you switching?
It's fine. All right, Corey, you there?
I'm here, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on.
Hi, Corey.
Which microphone is this, Jake? What are you doing?
The top one.
Was it?
Input 3.
Okay. Just give me a mic check there, Corey.
Yep, can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Great.
Go ahead. You have something.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm going to give him the floor. Go ahead, Corey. Tell us the story.
Yeah, sounds good. Just want to thank you guys so much for having us on and kind of letting us tell the story about our friend who's going through a pretty tough time right now. So many things in my life I can attribute to my buddy Eric Florup. Eric is a retired Marine. He was a sergeant in the 3rd Lad Battalion. Spent some time at the embassy in Qatar, and then also did a tour in Afghanistan. Eric had a rough time, in the service. They came under attack multiple times. He grew up in a small town in northern Michigan where there wasn't too much to do except for, have small town fun. And, he decided to enter the military after, just trying out a few different jobs in northern Michigan, and it wasn't fulfilling him. So he kind of wanted to do something different, and the Marines are where he found kind of a home and just a great group of brothers and sisters that he still keeps in touch with to this day. So Eric, here about a year and a half ago, started having a pretty bad headache, and for a few weeks, it just got too bad. He could not open his eyes. Thought it was Lyme disease and went into the doctor. A couple days later, after testing, found kind of the worst thing possible, and a large brain tumor, and it was grade 4 glioblastoma. You know, that day that they'll live on in our minds forever. I just couldn't believe it. Still can't believe it. You know, in talking with the doctors, it's likely that it was burn pits in Afghanistan that were the cause of it. And the outreach and everything that we've had from the VA, from you know, our congressman is a veteran as well, has been, you know, very great. Wish we weren't having to go through it, but the support has been amazing. So just want to, all the vets on, thank you so much for your service. Really appreciate it. So where you know, Eric Florb comes into the tool making world is they were stationed at Pendleton over in California, and he, you know, wanted to get his hands busy. So here about 10, 11 years ago, his wife Temple requested that a bookshelf be made and request that Eric make it. So Eric got to work making a bookshelf. Didn't really have many tools, and knew that he needed a handsaw. Eric could not believe the price of some premium handsaws that were out there. And there's some beautiful saws, but at that point, he went with something that he found in a thrift shop. And what he did is he took that saw apart, rebuilt it, and made it very useful. In doing that, he found a love for making saws. So that was his first saw that he kind of redid, and I'm sure by now he's made over 1,000 saws. Eric started by refurbishing a few saws, and then he started by making the handle, and then he started by making his own screws, making his own back, folding his back, flattening his own steel, cutting his own teeth. Eric did 100% of the machining for all of his saws. His saws were in Woodcraft. His saws were in Garrett Wade. He was, you know, making, you know, over 50 saws a week in his shop back here in northern Michigan. You know, I'd always go out to his shop, stop by, see what was going on. So things such as if his daughter Ella was out there, I think she's 11 now, you know, they were testing the durability of a Barbie or another toy against a, you know, 50-ton press, or seeing how it would fare in the CNC machine. So Eric immediately fell in love with machining. His daughter was there every step of the way with him, and, you know, his Instagram, there's still a lot of really sweet videos of them doing projects together out there. You know, his marine ingenuity and problem solving, and just his overall just desire to keep going, keep making things better, allowed him to not only make a saw, but figure out creative ways to machine a saw 100% in his shop and sell it for roughly $100. That was his goal, was a $100 saw that was just as good as, you know, a $300 handsaw or dovetail saw, and he definitely succeeded in that. So yeah, Eric, they're living in Traverse City. He's the cancer has definitely taken its toll. You know, we're at about 1.5 years, and Eric just entered in-home hospice care as of you know, a few weeks ago. So really tough to see. His sense of humor is there for sure. He keeps, you know, just the other day I was over there, and I'm a wood turner, and he keeps telling me that I need to go CNC on my lathe. So he's still giving me grief for that, just to get more production work in. But you know, love the guy. Love what folks have done to put together this tool chest that Charles is going to get on and talk about. That the community behind, you know, that he was in the woodworking and the saw making community, you know, in the veteran community, is absolutely humbling. And, you know, feel very fine speaking on behalf of their family. This is all incredibly appreciated.
You bringing them on? Have they seen these pictures?
No, they're going to when the next guy comes on. Anything to say yet?
No?
I'd have to let him go.
Yep. Oh, you mean he can't? Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to let you go, Corey, to get Charles on.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, really appreciate it, fellas.
Thank you, Corey.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
So this is the builder of the tool cabinet. And he'll tell you what's in there and how you can get it.
See if we can get him. Second to make sure.
There he is.
There you go. Just 1 second here. All right, you're on.
All right. Hey guys, my name's Charles. Thank you for having me on. Just wanted to show you what we're doing here to raise some money for Eric and his family. I built a traditional Dutch tool chest right here, and it holds every tool that you would really need for hand tool woodworking. It holds the planes, chisels, saws, 3-back saws. Everything folds up, and you can store your tools very nice. And 2 shelves down here for extra tools. Every single tool that you see here was actually donated from people in the community. We're talking thousands of dollars worth of tools. 2 years ago, I made another tool chest for a charity auction, and we ended up raising quite a bit of money. And Eric, this was before he got sick, he actually donated a saw to that tool chest. No questions asked. I had never met him before, never talked to him. I just sent a message. He just responded with, "What's your email?" or, what's your address? Let me send it to you. No questions asked, and just really wanted to return the favor. But we have an incredible tool set, everything from sharpening to every saw that you would need, your bench planes, some specialty joinery planes as well. And we've got a huge list of people here that sent tools. If it's all right, I'd like to give some shout outs, but Michael, Kayla, Charlie McKenzie, Bob, Ian, Robert Coffey, Eric Benson, Tom, Trevor, Andrew, Austin White, Troy, James Wright from Wood by Wright has been amazing during this whole process. He has let us use a site to list up this posting, and I sent Rob Cosman a link if he can post that in the chat or wherever.
Already done.
What we're going to do is tickets are only $5. You can buy as many as you want. We're giving a price break. If you buy 25 tickets, it's $100, and the winner will be sent this chest free of charge. And we just really hope to kind of carry on Eric's legacy.
Thank you. Wonderful. How heavy is it?
It's fairly heavy, but obviously there's a lot of tools. But some of the advantages, it's all made out of pine, and so that really cuts down on the weight. And these chests, they're traditional, really popular 17th, 18th century. So these were made for travel. So you can easily throw this in the back seat of your car, go to a woodworking class. So they're very travel friendly.
And all the proceeds are going.
Yeah, 100%. Every single tool on here, the list of people that I mentioned, they all sent that on their own dimes. I'm going to cover the shipping fee, and 100% of the money is going to go to Eric and his family.
Awesome. Wonderful cause. Well, thank you. Thank you. It's great to see people stepping up and helping these soldiers that have literally put it on the line for us, and now they're having to pay the price. So with what we do with the Purple Heart Project, I know exactly how you feel, and I know why you do it. So hopefully everybody else will catch that.
Even money aside, obviously we want to send a lot of money to Eric and his family, but money aside, Eric has inspired so many people to get into saw making, and we just really hope that this chest not only raises a lot of money, but really helps kind of carry on his name for a long time. These chests, they're made to last a long time. Every tool in here, if whoever wins this, if you take care of it, I mean, you can get hundreds of years out of this, and we just really want to carry on Eric's legacy.
I'm just going to have Frick scan the questions to see if there's anybody that has a question having a problem getting to the cart for the raffle. Bob Proctor.
I posted the link. It's on Wood by Right's website.
Can you check and see if it works?
Yeah.
Jake, can you go in there and read and see if there's any other questions that need to be answered? Or
Just make sure that when you're adding a ticket, you have to select if you want to add one ticket or 22 or 25. And yeah, it seems to be working for me.
Okay. Any other questions on there pertaining to this? No. Okay.
No, they're just listening.
All right. Well, let's hope that it's hugely successful. 'Tis the season.
Yeah, James posted up that listing when I left work at 5 o'clock, and by the time I got home, it was already up to $1,300 in just a quick 20-minute span. So we're going to be selling raffle entries between now and Christmas Eve. We're going to announce the winner on Christmas Eve on James Wright's live stream, and then whoever is the winner will get in contact with you, and we'll send you this tool chest.
We'll be watching. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for having us on. I really appreciate it.
Happy to help. All right. You have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Buy your tickets, folks. Wonderful cause. And in case you're wondering why there's no Cosman saws in there, by the time they got to me, the chest was full. So all they asked us to do was if we would promote it, and of course we'd be willing to promote it, and we'll make a donation as well. Very fitting. Next question, Kurt. Can you pull it all back together?
Yep. Dean Rampy in Oregon.
Hi, Dean. Know Dean well.
I have a Schoberg Elite 2000 workbench.
Yeah.
Both the face vise and end vise, both double bar with the screw in the center, have a racking problem. Any idea how to fix this?
Yeah, if you look underneath, so the Schoberg Elite Series has the same type of vise, only bigger. What?
I'll go get
You don't have one.
advice.
Oh, well, it's not the same. But I think it's.
Not the same idea.
I think it's the same idea. Yeah. Jake will bring it in. I'll show you exactly what it means. So in the meantime, let's go on another question. We'll come back to this as soon as he gets back. Next, Frick.
Drago from Santa Barbara, California. Can I?
How's his first name?
Drago, Drago.
Drago. From where?
Santa Barbara, California.
Santa Barbara. I've been there.
Can I build the top of my workbench with a 2x4 construction lumber and then laminate 3/4 hard maple on the top surface?
Can he or did he?
He's asking, can I? Can I build the top of my workbench with a 2x4 construction lumber and then laminate 3/4 hard maple on the top surface.
I assume you're doing that to save money. So you're going to laminate, well, this all comes back to the same thing we talked about, and that is the stability of the wood based on its moisture content. So your construction lumber is not going to be, typically it's not going to be as dry as your hardwood, because I assume you're buying your hardwood from a hardwood dealer. So if you can get them to be the same, and for thickness, you're going to use the 2x4, which wouldn't be a problem. Square it all up. I would do the same thing I would do with the hardwood. Cut 30% more pieces than you need. Let them dry on their own. Then mill them. I would let them sit for another week or two to see if they move. Take the best ones, do a final milling on them so they're nice and square, flat. Glue them together, and then glue your top onto it. So, yeah, I don't think that would be a problem at all. Just want to make sure. And the checking with a scale is always your best bet in terms of determining when it is actually, you can buy the electronic moisture meters, but how do you know that that is the moisture content it should be in the environment that it's in? You do the weight thing and wait for it to start to fluctuate, then you know you hit it. Okay, so Dean, here's what your vise looks like underneath. This is the side that gets bolted to the underside of the bench. So there are two, I think it's phenolic resin strips right here. So you've got the frame, you've got the strip, and then you've got the tubes that make up the actual vise, right? The phenolic strips allow this to run nice and smooth. Over here, you have a phenolic strip, a steel bar, and if you look down there, you can see a screw there, or actually it's a bolt there and a bolt here. And then over here, you have the two bolts, and there is a nut here and a nut here. That's the one you use to lock. So you loosen this up, you tighten up that bolt and that bolt so that it removes any racking. But you still want to be able to move it, so you don't want it too tight, but you want it tight enough there's no racking left. And then once you get it where you want it, hold that bolt securely with an open end wrench while you tighten this one, the second nut, against the nut that's welded in place, and that will lock it and hold it. And that's how you adjust your vise to get rid of any racking. And of course, the other thing is don't over tighten. This won't rack unless you try to force it. And if you try to force it, you'll get it to pull a little bit, because think about it. You're putting all your pressure on this one side. You're going to cause that thing to move a little bit, but you'd be surprised at how little it actually racks. That's a pretty easy adjustment. Next, Frick. Who died? What? Mickey?
Royce.
Jack is? Did you say Jack Lane is? Yeah. Did he get that situation taken care of? The guy that was looking for the plans for the wheelchair bench? Jack, if you can hear me, there was a fellow earlier on that was looking. He's expects to be in a wheelchair within the year, and he wanted to know about modifying a bench to fit. And the chap in Alberta that built the bench for Austin, I'm sure he would be willing to share his plans. So I asked him if he would contact you. So the chap who's looking for it, Jack's on, you two connect, and everybody will be happy. Next, Frick.
Someone in the chat named Lynx.
Lynx?
Yeah, says, not sure it's been asked, but how do you determine the proper height for your sharpening station?
Oh, sharpening station. Well, that's a good question. And no, it wasn't asked. So first of all, the thinking behind it is, if you try sharpening, assume this is my stone, if you're trying to sharpen at what I would call bench height, so you're working on this, and you realize you can't stay in one spot, you're going to wear your stone out. So to this circular motion, you have to introduce this motion, right? So that while you're doing your little circles, you're moving along the stone. The problem is it's very difficult to do those two motions at the same time without rocking back and forth and turning that into a radius, which you don't want to do. But if you take your stone and you move it to a lower level, what that allows you to do is two things. Number one, it moves, it takes the movement away from your wrist, which is right here, and it allows you to move it all the way up to your shoulder. Well, the farther away you can get from that pivot point, the easier it is to maintain that angle. Up here, your pivot point's right here, and you're trying to do this. Very difficult to maintain that angle to not do this. But over here, I'm able to lock my wrist, lock my elbow, and pivot from up here, and people can successfully do it with very minimal training. The other advantage is, instead of introducing a second motion like this while you're doing these little circles, you can simply stay in this one position, but just hinge on your ankles forward and back, allowing you to cover the entire surface of the stone without introducing a second motion to this. Okay, what's the height? By the way, when you're thinking about this, it's very uncomfortable. So the faster your stones cut, the better. That's why we sell fast-cutting stones, for that reason. Here's my height. There's my knee. All swollen on the side because of a torn meniscus. Ignore that. So there's my kneecap is right there. So what, 4 or 5 inches above my kneecap, if you consider that that's the height I'm working on. That's what works for me, but it may not work for you. So what we do when we make this on the benches out there in the shop for the vets is, can you see it on this one? Oh. So we make it adjustable. So we've got a block.
It's like that.
Oh, like this, yeah. So there's a block of wood on the inside. It's got a bolt going all the way through, and you can loosen the nut. You can raise it up or lower it and lock it where you want it. And that way you're not committed to anything, and you can actually find what you want. But those are the two criteria. Move your pivot point as far away as possible and be able to rock over the stone so that you don't end up rounding your blade, moving like this as you're trying to introduce this motion and this motion. For men, we do one thing at a time. Next. Frick, please. Merry Christmas, everyone, by the way. 'Tis the season to be jolly.
Javier Torres.
Javier.
Actually, before I say that, Dave Bell wanted me to let you know that the girls say hi, Ellie and Maya.
Hi, girls.
Okay, so Javier says, have you had experience using rope to clamp laminated 2x4 together for a bench? Clamps are expensive.
Rope? Well, no, but you could, twisting it. You can make your own. The idea that Luther had with the screws and the washers for clamping the bench top is better than cauls and clamps, because you can put as many as you want on there, and the big heavy washer will spread the pressure area out greater. So you can go every 3 inches, and you're going to get as good a clamping as we get with that big fancy press that Chris built, vacuum press. So no, I haven't used rope. I suppose you could also put a piece of plastic on it and use sandbags too. There's a lot of things you could do. Next, Frick.
My mic was muted apparently there. It was Danny Bell's girls that said hello, Ellie and Mila.
Yeah. You didn't hear that. You didn't.
They didn't hear me say who's girls. You just said hi, girls.
Oh. The Bell girls, the Bell twins.
Jeff wants to know where you get the drain pan for the sharpening. Jeff Schnapp.
Jeff who?
Schnapp.
Schnapp. We have them, and they'll go live. Why are they not up on yet? We did the video a month ago. They'll be on the site this week. We have them in inventory. It's a Shapton product.
Andrew Smith says, are there any drawbacks in using hickory for a bench?
Oh, it's not a fun wood to plane. Yeah. And the other problem is that any open porous wood like hickory and the oaks, ash, Not really walnut because it's dark anyway. But any wood like that is going to get really dirty as dirt and grime get down into the pores. If you look at an oak floor that's not new, and you'll know how black it gets because you get dirt down into those pores and you can't get it off. Whereas maple, cherry, birch, very close pores wood, that doesn't happen. So it'll look really grungy in no time. And that's almost impossible to avoid. Next, Rick. And as I said, hickory's a pain to plane.
Joe Ozemic in Seattle.
Hey, Joe.
He says the end pieces on workbenches are usually made from material that is 12-quarter or greater. Would you demonstrate how to cut a dovetail in 12-quarter material, please?
Oh, yeah. So what he's talking about is this big shoulder. So you have to have the depth of cut that's 3 1/4 inches. This one's only 2 1/4. So you're going to use something other than any of my saws. I think if I did them one time, I used this as far as I could. And I'm about 5/16 inches away from the bottom. And then I went in. Did I use a handsaw after that? Because the kerf is different.
It wouldn't matter.
But let's try something. Let's try the new super duper Cosman rip saw and see how it works. If we can get a nice clean kerf. What are we going to use? What do we got thick? I got a piece of maple here. I don't have anything as thick as you're going to use, but if it'll work on this, it'll work on anything. What?
You get a dog hole.
Oh, I'm just going to do one cut. So, the secret, and it seems to be a secret, to getting a nice straight cut is using a saw that has minimal set. And most don't. They've got such wide set that you end up with a really wide kerf and the saw just wobbles to and fro. Makes a mess. So we've cut, oh, I see what you mean. So if we were going to try to cut a dovetail,
Is that supposed to be a slanted cut?
why it's not? You know what? We might have to do a video of dovetailing with that. So the only thing critical is you need a straight cut. So if you eyeball that cut, that's nice and straight. Across the end. So
That might be out more than an 1/8/6 though.
Oh, well, I didn't have a line. Crying out loud, give me a break. I didn't know that would fit.
It's 40,000.
Yeah, unacceptable.
Try
We're going to straighten it out.
Try
No.
that first one. I think that first one was your better cut anyway.
Bang on. Should have quit when I was ahead. So, our saw Chris is the one that that does all of the engraving on our saws. Our saw has just 3 thou set per side. That means if you were to measure how far that tooth is bent to the right beyond the side of the plate, it would measure 3/1000 of an inch, less than 3/4 the thickness, 3/4 the thickness of a piece of writing paper, which means when you get your kerf going, there's not a lot of slop. So the sides of the kerf touch the sides of the blade and they keep it going in that direction so it doesn't wander one way or the other. Now that also has to do with sharpening, but more importantly is the set. So how do you cut big dovetails like that? I just showed you. And you can purchase the saws at RC Woodworking, RobCosman.com. So there you go. No limits. Cut them as big as you need. Next, Frick.
Kyle Rogers from Gold Coast, Australia.
Hi, Kyle.
He says, I'm about to build the Cosman workbench and was looking to install an edge band around the bench with hardwood. I don't have access to torrefied timber. What's your recommendations on installing a hardwood edge band so the top stays flush with the seasonal changes?
Isn't that the one we answered in the very beginning?
I don't know. That was a question that we answered. I don't know if it was
Well, it
his.
was almost verbatim.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say it again. So you're attaching a 3-inch. I said 4-inch. It's only 3, which would make it even better. You're wanting to put a piece of 3-inch hardwood on the edge of the bench top, and this stuff is not going to change from 3 inches, and the 3-inch piece of hardwood may change slightly. I don't think you have anything to worry about over 3 inches, but if you want to be careful, because the last thing you would want is to have that band expand and creep up above the surface. You want that to be flush. So what I would do, I assume you're going to dovetail the corners, yes? So I would only glue the top 1 inch. Go all the way around. Glue the top 1 inch. The dovetail will hold the rest of it in place. I don't think you're going to have a problem. And now, if it expands, all the expansion is going to go south. It's not going to stop. It's not going to jump up above and end up with a ridge right there. That's the easiest way to do it. Now, I just thought about that, and that might make it if you've got it flush, top and bottom, that's not going to need to be. That's not going to need to be held any other way other than just that top inch. And you could even go top 1.5 inches and you'd be safe. I don't think you need to worry about it all on 3 inches, particularly if you're in a climate-controlled shop. And that's why it's worth going and buying a dehumidifier or something to control your humidity. Next question, Frick.
Shane from Cambridge, Ontario.
Hey, Shane.
Says, I'm a member of the online workshop building the claw-style workbench with Rob's amazing shoulder and wagon vise hardware. I'm about to cut the bench dog holes in the dog strip with the traditional upside-down L shape using a router and template rather than the straight dog holes Rob cuts with the dado stack on the table saw. Would love to hear Rob's thoughts on this approach.
Okay, so I have to hear the question the first time to understand what we're talking about. Now I need you to read it again, sorry.
Well, I'll read the main piece. He says, I'm about to cut the bench dog holes in the dog strip with the traditional upside-down L shape using a router and a template rather than the straight dog holes Rob cuts with the dado stack on the table saw. What are your thoughts on this approach?
So an upside-down L. So in other words, the bench stock is going to be wider at the top than it is at the bottom. So the first question I have is, okay, why is it done that way? And I assume it's done that way so that it won't drop all the way through. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that's an awful lot of work for what benefit, right? You're not going to see that. So we did this, and if you watched that, you would have seen this. This is another reason why I don't have any springs in any of my pens. So I took a piece of lumber and I cut a slot to here. I think I used a table saw, but you could use a straight bit. And then I went in with a bit that's called, what's that bit that looks, it's shape of a T. You use it for, you know what I mean? Oh, here, I can grab it right here. You use it for cutting a little slot on the back of a picture or anything you're going to hang on the wall. I'll dig it out. Huh? Well, I don't know, but that sounds right because it's shape of a T. Where is it? Is that what it is? Yeah, here it is right here. Right? So there's the bit. Now the reason I pre-cut, because when you're cutting this, you've got a lot of material waste you're trying to get rid of. So by cutting a slot with a straight bit first, that just gives you a little less material to hog away. So you go in and you cut that T-slot, just like that. Then I took a piece of hardwood. This is a piece of babinga. Now this is where it gets a little bit complicated. And I cut the babinga. Can you hone in on that? To be a T-shape, only smaller, so that I can do this. I drilled 2 holes, one here and one there, that went down to about, probably that deep where my thumbs are. And I took the springs out of a couple of pens, and I put the springs in the holes. And then on the underside of this movable piece, I drilled the same diameter hole up into this piece, just a 1/16 of an inch or so, just a way for the spring to register. And then I started to push this in. Now I can't remember what I did. How did I do it so that the first one wouldn't catch? I must not have, I think that's what happened. Yeah. So I only put the first spring in. I left the second spring out. I started to slide this in until that little hole cut underneath here was past where the spring is. Because when you eventually get to one spot, the 2 springs are going to jump up into those 2 little indents, those 2 little holes, and they're going to lock this in place. But what it allows for tension. So when you put your bench dog in there, no matter where it sits, it stays put. Which I think is a lot better solution than going through the work that you want to do. Unless there's a reason to make that inverted L that is a benefit, I don't know what it would be. I'd love to hear if there is one. In other words, do something like that and make it so much easier. Next, Rick.
I'm out of questions mostly.
You're out of questions?
Mike from Stirling, Cumbria, UK, in the chat.
Hi, Mike.
He says, I don't have an air stapler, but I do have an Air 18 GA brad nailer. Will the ranged small head brads be enough to hold the ply frame sections together when gluing up?
So what Mike's asking about is when we do the base for the Cosman workbench, we take a sheet of Baltic birch and we cut it into 3 7/8 inch strips, a whole bunch of them. 3 7/8 because you're going to get your maximum yield. Actually, it might have gone 3 15/16, I don't know, but you have to be under 4 or else you wouldn't get enough on the last strip to have a 4-inch piece. And then we cut these into pieces, into various lengths. And we had it all planned out in the video so that you get best yield. So, for example, this one was actually done backwards. This first piece, no, this is done right. This first piece goes from right here to right there. Then there's a piece that goes horizontally across here, and then this piece goes horizontally across there. The next piece, there's a short piece that goes from here to there. Then there's a piece that goes from here to here, and then from here out. The next piece in on this one goes all the way down and all the way up. The next piece on here is a short piece between here and here. The same thing for the next section. There's 4 sections. And the last section is a repeat of this one. What it produces is a mortise or a hole in this piece created by the building blocks. And it creates a tenon on this piece that goes from here down and from here up. So instead of having to go in and cut a mortise and tenon, you're actually building it. Well, that would require a lot of clamps. So instead of clamping it, what I used was a 1/4-inch crown staple gun. So that means, sometimes we use terminology that not everybody's familiar with. Oh, do I have any here to show you? Yeah. No, that's a pin nailer. This one might be though. Yeah. So a 1/4-inch crown refers to the width of the staple, or the crown, right? And there's a brad nailer that he's asking about. So when you drive this in, you have these two legs, and by the way, this is a heat set glue. That's what that yellow is. Not only does it hold these together, which makes it easier to load, but under the friction and the heat generated by the friction of that driving into the wood, that heat sets, and it not only is it acting like a nail, but it's actually a glued nail. Somewhat the same with these. You can't see it, but there's a heat set glue on there. With this one, you have this leg of the staple and that leg of the staple holding the material between it. So the holding power is so much greater. You use this, and all you have is a little bit of wood that's underneath the head of that brad, which is not a lot. Now, a nail gun only works. See this on construction sites all the time. A nail gun only works if the two pieces are held firmly together, then you drive the nail and it holds it like that. If there's a gap in here, the nail is the staple, unlike a hammer-driven nail, a handheld hammer, that will drive the two pieces together. But if you've got a gap under here and you drive that staple in, you're still going to have a gap. So it didn't do you any good. So when we do this, we glue it, and then actually what I do is I push down like this, and I push with enough pressure, I start to see a little bit of a glue, and then bang, hit it. And then I come along here, I get a little bit of squeeze out, and then hit it. Same thing all along there. That way you're pulling the two pieces of wood together, or the two pieces of plywood together, before the staple then goes in and holds them. Can you do the same thing with a brad? No, you can, but you can see how the holding power is so much better with the staple. Maybe use extra brads and you'll be fine. But, you know, I don't know what it's like. He's in the UK, right? We can buy, or at least we used to be able to buy, a staple gun like this for $100, $100 and a bit. And they come in really handy. So that's $100 Canadian. Next, Rick.
Lonnie, or wait, no.
Hey, are we giving away prizes tonight?
No, I didn't post the draw link. And Luther's not here to tell us the donations.
Oh, this is a freebie.
Hang on a second.
Huh?
Well, Ken has the donations for.
Yeah,
Do you?
yeah.
Ken's
But I don't think. But we haven't broken the threshold.
Oh, we haven't?
We haven't shared the link. We can.
We're at 1189 right now.
That's one. That's one.
I haven't started the draw. Put it into next week.
There we go.
Add it?
A big
Okay,
draw.
we'll add it. We'll do a big draw. Our next live is on the 23rd of December. So it'll be a big Christmas draw. And we need money. Oh, we need money. Let me just tell you about this real quick. Expenses just keep going up, as everybody is well aware. So if you can, we could sure use it, because the cost of doing this, airfare just keeps going through the roof. And it's an expensive venture. So we are now a 501c3, which is a registered charity in the United States, and we're applying for the same status in Canada, which will take effect, Ken, sometime next year.
Yeah, mid-year we hope.
Mid-year, we hope. It's a complicated process. So we'll be able to issue tax receipts for Canadians as well as Americans. Can I release the number? It's about 52,000.
Class, yeah.
About 52. It costs 52,000 US per class. We do 6 classes a year. Do the math on that one. That was last year's numbers. So RC Woodworking is picking up the tab, but we'd love to share the blessings. So if you want to reward some of these combat wounded vets, you know, we would love to accept your donation. And on this program, we give back a nice $300 value, average price $300 prize for every $1,000 we raise. So That's probably more generous than we should be, but based on the fact that we're trying to raise money to run the PHP. Next, Rick.
I got one from Cliff McEwen. He said, you made the MDF workbench top 60 by 20. Why not 23 or 24 wide?
Oh, good question. Cliff, from where?
The chat.
So, Cliff, I had the same question because when I started digging out information on workbenches, I couldn't understand why these workbenches were always so narrow. Well, once you start to use it, you'll realize you cannot plane over here very effectively. You certainly can't plane over there. So the bulk of what you're going to do is going to be done from here to here. So having this extra wide bench, other than accumulating more junk, really doesn't benefit you at all when it comes to a workbench. If you're having an assembly table, that's a different story. But if you're making a bench to take the place of a traditional workbench, my core section is what, 18?
I think it's
17 inches. And you know what? I've had this, I mean, my last one was the same. And I have never said to myself, shoot, I wish this thing was another 14 inches wider. So it's never been an issue at all, ever. So I see people, they make these great big wide benches, and I think, man, they haven't been using it, or else they wouldn't have done that. Now, you're using, when you buy a sheet of MDF, you always get an extra inch in length and width. So you certainly have the capacity. I would never use the actual outside. I always like to cut that away a little bit. And we don't do anything with the extra piece, do we? The extra strip, no. But the way I laid it out is you take your 4x8 sheet of MDF, and we cut a 20-inch strip like that. And then we cut another 20-inch strip like that. This is waste. And then you come in and you cut your 60 and your 60. And there's enough left over. This is your top, this is your bottom, and these two pieces butted together create your middle section. And when everything's all glued together, it's almost like one homogeneous piece anyway, so no worries. But that's how you get your top out of one piece. You could easily make this a little bit wider, because you've got there as well. And you can even go a little bit longer, because we use right now we're doing 60. So this is 60 and this is 30. We've got 97. So we have an extra 7 inches. If we went 64 would leave us 33. That would still give us enough. Yeah, do the math on it. You could make it longer. I don't know why we stuck with 60 inches. I guess we just built around that, and it's easier to ship. That's my answer. Next, Frick.
All right, last one. This one's from Adam in the chat.
It's only 10-2.
Yeah, we're done.
Who?
All of us. Adam in the chat says, sorry if this is a repeat question. How does the MDF hold up with the lateral pressure being applied to the dogs? Is it a lifetime bench like hardwood would be?
Well, that's a good question. I think I'll take 12 minutes to answer that. Ugh. If I was to go and find any one of these, now, I remind me to say something about holdfasts. You could go out, we just replaced some of the bench tops, but we didn't replace them because the dogholes were worn out. We replaced them because they would ship back and forth to Ontario, and they got the corners knocked off from handlers in the shipping company. But we've never worn out a dog hole. And what I do with mine is I use cyanacrylate in the first inch or so. Just soak a thin cyanacrylate in there, and that'll stiffen that up well. But even without that, it's never ever been an issue. But again, you're not using that to make apple cider and squeezing apples. You're just holding a piece so that it doesn't move. People stand on those handles and say, no, you don't have to do that. Moderation in all things. Now, a holdfast is a device that looks like a big modified 7, and you would put your holdfast down in the hole, and has the modified end of the 7 would sit on here, and as you drive it down here, it leverages itself in there and it holds that piece firmly. I don't know what that's going to do to your dog holes. I don't use them, but I would think you could get away with it. But never had an issue with the bench dogs damaging the bench tops. We've got bench tops out there that have been, how many years?
7.
The first benches we made were built, what year did we make that?
2016.
2016, when
Make one.
when we made a whole bunch of
Yeah.
benches.
Well, no, that was 17 and we made a whole bunch.
We still have those, some of those. So no, it's really durable. It's durable, and if you get the waterproof stuff, then it's almost, I wouldn't say
And
it's
I mean,
indestructible, but
What's durable? I mean, if you got 10 years out of a $150 sheet of MDF,
yeah. You could probably you could glue another section on top of it if you needed to. But you're right, it's pretty inexpensive.
All right, I got one more.
Oh, good.
This is from Randy in the chat. He says, when building the composite
Randy.
top to a Cosman workbench, how do you ensure the first and subsequent sheets / final project are flat?
Well, that's a good question. Frick, Ken, do you have any more vets to say hello to?
No.
Okay. So how do you make sure the first and second ones are flat? So if you're doing it per our video, then I mentioned this earlier, you've got to go in, you build your base first. It's not hard to make sure that the stretchers, those are the top pieces that run horizontally, the stretchers are flush with the top of the uprights. And assuming that your uprights are the same, meaning they're the same width and the same height, you assemble it, you make sure that all the top corners are flush, and then you put your winding sticks across this end and across that end, like we showed you. You have to imagine that the top's not on here. So I would set this winding stick on the top of that stretcher, and I would put this winding stick on top of this stretcher, and then I would sight down there and make sure the two top edges are parallel. If they're not, if I need to wedge one corner a little bit, I will. And you can get really accurate. You could get within a couple of thou by sighting and using your winding sticks, believe it or not. It's actually quite easy. Once you've got that set, then you're going to set your first piece of MDF on there, and you're going to center it. So you've got a little bit of overhang there, and you got a little bit of overhang there, but not as much as what you'll eventually have when you attach your vise. So this whole thing would be moved down a little bit. So you've got pretty good coverage. I suppose if you wanted to, you could even go in there and figure out a way to add another piece onto here and onto there, another extension of that horizontal piece so that you had support out there as well. And again, it would be flush with the top. And then that's as good as you're going to get in terms of holding that first piece nice and flat. And that's why, one of the reasons why I encourage people to use the 1-inch MDF, it's going to tend to be flatter than the 3/4 inch MDF.
thanks, Rick.
Another one, Frick? Did one more come in? How did our donations do, Ken? They didn't move? My speech didn't work?
Anthony Antonucci says, Rob, can you recommend any good plans for building a portable workbench? Thank you.
This is a portable workbench. So Willie, our 82-year-old retired fabricator, takes these bench casters. Jake, do you want to tell them about the new things we just got?
No.
Okay, fine. Not in the mood? You don't like it?
No, I don't know yet. So I don't want to talk
Well,
about
you mounted them.
it. Yeah. I don't know yet.
You don't know yet. Willie takes the casters, takes them apart, welds on an extra steel plate to stiffen them up, because that's the problem we found, and then paints them up so they look like new, and now they'll hold the weight. And they're really easy to operate. In fact, it's even easier. We did a video on this too, where we used a piece of hardwood to tie the two together. So instead of having to use this one or manipulate 4, you only have to manipulate 2. So you just step on that piece of hardwood that ties those two tabs together, and you can either disengage or engage, and then you can move it to wherever you need. When you get it where you want it, you drop them out and Way to go. So if that's what you're talking about, portability, that's the best answer for that. We ship this bench, and if you take that bench over there that doesn't have the cabinets in it, Ken, what's the dimension? We make these and sell them as well, because a lot of people don't have the capacity to make it. When that's all boxed up, what's the dimension?
62 by...
So we sell them in a box, in a plywood box. Kevin makes them.
67
67 is the length.
by 25.
So the box ends up being 67 inches long by 25 inches wide.
Well, with our cleats, it's 10.
Without cleats, just the box.
7.
By 7 inches tall. And that whole thing goes in there. It's nice and compact. And the assembly time when you buy it new is 10 minutes? 10 minutes you can put it together. Certainly you can take it apart in 10 minutes. It's really, really simple, but it's sturdy. And this could be your one and only bench.
Troy would like to comment that you could be a leg model.
Troy?
Yeah.
Troy.
Troy Clark.
Bumblebee tuna?
What's Troy Clark doing on there? Could be a leg model. So Troy's our goalie. I know, we're not very fussy. He also works for, I can't even say who he works for. That's top secret. Hi, Troy. Troy's our goalie. Best goalie we have.
That's over 50.
That's on here tonight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, Troy, I'm impressed. You spent 2 hours on here. Dude, you need to get a hobby. Are we done, Frick?
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Let's cut her.
Huh?
Let's cut it for now.
All right, it's 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock our time, 8 o'clock their time. So we'll see you again. Our last one before Christmas will be on the 23rd. We'll make it a special night. Was Santa Claus on tonight? Did anybody notice?
I didn't see him.
Santa, Mrs. Claus. Maybe we'll have them on. And we give away lots of prizes. So we'll actually give away a couple of Christmas prizes. Are we going to do that thing, Jake, that we talked about? The giveaway?
Not my realm anymore.
Whose is it?
Social media.
Oh, who's the social media expert? Frick?
What?
Oh. You stay tuned. So if you're not on our newsletter, get on our newsletter. We're going to give away some prizes just to be nice from sometime the 10. What's that song? How many days of Christmas?
14
12
days of
days.
Christmas.
It's 12 days.
12 days of Christmas.
Oh, wait, no.
It's only 12. That's for the birds in the tree.
The birds and the bees or the birds in the tree?
Just birds in the tree. So we're going to give away a nice little prize. We'll draw the names from our newsletter. Guess what you need to do? No, not doing that. Sorry. I messed it up.
No.
What are we doing?
Social media. So that people know who won and the people that won can be identified, not just a name and an email.
So we're going to do it through Instagram and Facebook.
Interaction, yes.
Okay. So follow us on Instagram and Facebook and you might win a prize.
Or you might not.
Or you might not. But we'll try to give you some good content. Frick's going to get really busy. We'll film a bunch of Instagrams this week. Watch our YouTube channel. We try to give you good education on there so you learn what to do with these. There's sales all this month, flash sales. They only last for 24 hours. We had, just tell them a quick, what was the last?
Curvex 10s are on right now.
Right now, Curvex 10s are on. How much off?
$25.
$25 off a Curvex 10, and that's good for until noon tomorrow. On the weekend we had...
On the weekend, it's Friday.
Oh, yeah. Okay, what did we do this week? We did marking gauges, one 24-hour period. How much off on those?
$20.
20?
On a cosmonized marking gauge.
Cosmonized marking gauge?
It's 25% off.
Did we do that with the saws too, dovetail saws?
Dovetail saws were 20%.
20% off dovetail saws? You missed that one. Or maybe you didn't. Anyway, so we're going to have more of those for the month of December. So get on our newsletter. That's where we advertise. Have a wonderful December. We'll see you here just before Christmas. Thank you for participating. Really appreciate your help. If you know any combat wounded veterans, send them our way. RobCosman.com. You can go on there and apply to accept it into our program. First class starts in April. We do 6 every year. It's a 6-day class for the vets. We take care of all their expenses. Every vet takes home in American dollars, $4,000 worth of premium tools. And thanks to Jack Lane and Jim Merzetti up in Moncton and all the volunteers that we have around the world. Oh, I got to say a shout out to
David Hicks.
David Hicks. So David Hicks was a Vietnam vet in our class last summer. He actually is an American, but he lives in Ontario. He's very ill. He's had cancer, surgery, and please remember him in your prayers. David, thinking of you, brother. Was great to have him here. And a big thanks to his friend that notified us about this. I don't know whether he wants to be named or not, but he knows who he is. All right. You guys have a wonderful month. We'll see you in a couple weeks.